is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting, as indicated in agenda item remarks of the public. I just want to remind those of you who have not been here before that we have a little bit of a different format where we try to have a little more interaction with the remarks of the public. But I also remind you that difference of opinion is the American way. So we will be respectful, we will be civil. We have children who come to witness how the government works, so we want to make sure we set a good example. And we start with...
He's trying to get United to come back.
And welcome.
Everything's on airlines. You know, how he compared the school to the airlines.
Here. Joel, stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is approval of agenda and addendum items. Is there a motion to do so? Is there a second, please? Second. Any questions or changes?
There is, under executive session, I would request that there be an adding of an item C to add employment of a public employee according to terms Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1, and employment of a public employee 121.22G1.
Okay. Anybody else got anything else? I do. Mr. Benicasa, welcome, because this is for you. On section 8, we have a bylaw 0131 legislative fourth reading. Mr. Benicasa had emailed me and asked that that be moved to a later date, so we are doing that.
I didn't ask that.
I didn't ask that. There's an email. So please take it off the agenda.
Yeah, take it off.
Okay, we're taking it off the agenda. We'll bring it up at a later date if it needs to be. Does anybody else have any other thoughts, things that they want to put on? I have other emails and phone calls and suggestions. Okay, can we approve the agenda and the addendum items, please? Okay, can we vote it out? Yes. Item number 4 is the minutes, the meeting minutes of January 9th and the meeting minutes of January 13th. Is there a motion to accept them? Is there a second, please? I will second. Is there any discussion? Changes? If not, then we all Mrs. Dory? Yes. 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 Which brings us to section 5, remarks of the public. Please note all persons wishing to address the board have a 5-minute limitation. Please state your name, address, and the topic. Yes, sir.
Howard Schenker of Alumni, Ohio. And I came up again for about 15 times to the event open enrollment. Kind of was ongoing event with the board. Last time I spoke about the purpose clause of passing the school. And now with the board constitution, the purpose, and I've looked back over the last 8 or 9 school levies, and never purpose include spending $2.8 million for residents that don't live in the district. That was not fairly disclosed. I was told by one of the board members that that was okay because of the open enrollment statutes. Well, we kept with the Constitution of the United States does not permit open enrollment to supersede the United States Constitution, so that to provide due process of law to the residents of the district who are paying the taxes on their property, I very much would like the board to accurately state the purpose, because $2.8 million today is being spent on 250 students, of which we are losing $1.4 million. The state gives us $5,600 and we pay $11,600, which was disclosed as a meeting that the board is preparing to have with us. I believe we were their person in charge of that. I believe the prior board was president. Then, in addition to that, I believe we're violating the federal constitution under the Equal Protection Clause. Last meeting, I believe it was 3 weeks ago, a parent came to the resident and said that he was being charged for afternoon kindergarten. And the response was from Victoria, I believe, was they are not required by the board, is not required by law to provide all the kindergarten. So if we wanted to get this up, my comment is that if you take that theory and equally apply it to all residents of the district, you would have to charge people for honors classes, advanced placement classes. So either charge everybody for the classes that are not provided or required by the state constitution, or let people have all day kindergarten, because the whole reason that we're in this predicament is because we're taught to private enrollment. So younger students are definitely needed from residents, and if they need, I don't think there's anything wrong with treating them the same way we treat people who take advanced placement classes. And I would also suggest, last time we had a meeting, the board members put the burden of answering the questions on the superintendent, which I thought was improper, and it was actually insulted the way the meeting was run. You passed out cards and said you had to write down the questions, and then the superintendent decided which questions he would answer. I think the people vote for the members of the school board, and the school board should answer the question, because that's the only way I can interact with the board is by my vote. And the last thing I'd like to say is that you have enough respect for the residents here, and you're running for the Board of Education, please disclose if you're for or against open enrollment, so there is some way that the residents can express their concern about what you're doing.
Hello, I'm Jack Lutat. I'm speaking on behalf of open enrollment. I live in Burton, Ohio, outside of the district. I'm Jack Lutat. I've been a student of West Geauga High School in the open enrollment program going on 4 years now. I came here for an enhanced educational opportunity. At WestG, I have experienced an enriched curriculum and teachers who care and bond with their students. These are people who are passionate about their role in educating America's youth. I realized the greatness that lay within the West Geauga school system. I was incredibly excited to be a part of WestG, and as a result, I convinced one of my closest friends to transfer to WestG, and he was also an immediately happier and better performing student. We both flourished in this new environment, all because of the supporting, passionate teachers, our fellow students, and the wide-ranging curriculum and activities that your wonderful community offers to students. We consider ourselves a part of West Geauga. Right now, I'm taking AP classes, tutoring my fellow classmates, encouraging people to do their best, participating fervently in the West Geauga band, and I have plans for even more involvement in my senior year. I enjoy everything about WestG, the classes, the faculty, the programs, and especially the people. I do my best to make the WestG school system as friendly, helpful, and as great a school as I possibly can. My open enrollment students, many open enrollment students, are active participants in the diverse activities offered within the school system. They contribute to the school's programs, are intelligent, and consider it a privilege to have access to a school and an honor to be a part of the West Geauga community. I would be devastated if this program came to an end. Our educational opportunity would be cut short. I'd be severed from all of those who have become dear to me. Our educational goals would be cut short as we are rejected from the school system, but I am still hopeful that we'll be able to finish our high school years at WestG. I'm really looking forward to my next and final year at WestG, and my sister, attending as a freshman, also looks forward to graduating as a part of WestG too. If open enrollment continues to allow the district to open their doors to students like me who are seeking the best educational opportunity available, I humbly request the board to continue the program. What harm has come from educating as many students as the limits allow? Our collective communities will only benefit from having a well-educated population, and West Geauga is one of the best schools there is. It means so much to so many of us. Please keep the program viable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just take a second to throw something down on behalf of the board. We are in the process of reviewing. Open enrollment gets reviewed every year. Mr. Palmer is looking at things as far as what our options are. We have a new treasurer to bring up the stuff and to do some calculating for us. We've had some new ideas that have been brought forward as far as potential scholarships and alumni fund and how to do different things. We are actively looking at it. It does get reviewed. It has initiated once upon a time because we were projecting a shortage, which did not happen. And we are in a very strong financial position right now. I will say that we did not invent open enrollment. It was invented by the state, and our council is here, and I can take a look at some of those statements from Mr. Schenker's first one to get a better handle on what's constitutional and what's not. We can try to have definitely part of the discussion and the analysis. And we are, there's a lot of concern from a lot of people for a number of different reasons. We are actively pursuing it. We don't have an answer for you. We are actively pursuing it in the best interest of our school district, our children, taxpayers, but we're going to try to do as thorough an analysis as possible. And one of the options that was not really well thought of that we have was, is there a way to have a scholarship aspect where, depending upon what happens with open enrollment, whether it stays full or whether it's contiguous or whatever it is, what are the 12 options? They were not researched well in the past. And as a matter of fact, somebody has actually suggested that we talk to Newberry. And now that Newberry has actively started to talk with Berkshire, maybe there's another possibility. So we don't know. We are doing the best we can. Thank you. Is there anybody else who has a comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Henry Watson. I'm a resident of Novelty, Ohio, and I go to West Geauga School District as well. I'm within the district. I'm not part of open enrollment, but I would like to say a few words in support of it. Because there's so many people who come forward saying that it's ruining our school districts and possibly doing some damage to our community, and I'd like to just come out and say that I think it's saving our school district and doing a good job for our community. So, because I've considered the effect of shutting down West Geauga's open enrollment program, and we all have as the students. Because firstly, without the students to bolster our class sizes, dramatic cuts will have to be made. Some of our teachers who are outstanding, hardworking teachers, every single one of them, will probably have to be let go because classes and programs will be slashed as these students vanish. And no one can say our class sizes are too large because we have classrooms standing empty. We can fill more, we can do more with the space we already have, and our graduating class is shrinking every year. Our senior class this year, I believe, is below 200 people, and I know it wasn't always that small. And Lindsay Elementary School is, rumor has it, hanging by a thread. People say that without open enrollment, there's a possibility that the school might very well be shut down. And then all the other students reallocated to the 3 other schools. I don't think anyone really wants that to happen. And also, if these open enrollment kids were shut out from our districts and sent back to the schools they came from, our school's performance would drop. A lot of people have volunteered statistics from other states, other school districts, where test scores have come down. But that may apply to other states. I know Kentucky is a notable example. But the kids coming into our school, they say are 96 to 97% proficient. And that's a significant figure because it compares to 91 to 93% proficiency rates of our own students. So they're actually bringing in students that are better and brighter than the ones we have here. And they're improving our schools and raising our test scores and raising, by effect, our property values, making our school a more attractive place to come to. And also, let's not forget that the money coming in for open enrollment comes from the state, and it largely covers many of the costs for it. It's not a terribly expensive thing because the state pays much more for open enrollment students than in-district students. And we can take any money we can get because programs that we all love and teachers that we love are being laid off, programs that we love are being cut because there's just not enough money to go around. So if there's an opportunity to bring in more money from the school, and if that comes with bringing in some great students, then I'm absolutely all for that. And finally, I'd just like to say that these kids, just like Jack, come into our school looking for a quality education because that is their right. They deserve to have that quality education because they're wonderful kids, they're our friends. And who are we to turn our back on those kids who come here with these kids and these parents who have such a wonderful and committed view to their future, who want to drive all the way from Summer Lake Burton to come to us every day, to come to West Geauga, to have a better future? Who are we to say no? Who are we to just turn our backs on them and reject their hopes and their dreams? And I think we should continue open enrollment, not just because it's an economically sound thing, not just because it keeps our schools open and keeps our teachers employed, but because it's the morally right thing to do, and because we, as the student body, are not going to say goodbye to some of our closest friends for no good reason. That's all I have to say.
I too am a member of West Geauga High School in district, and I am speaking about open enrollment. I've always considered myself very fortunate for where I've grown up. For 17 years, I've called Chesterland my home, and I have loved every moment of it. Chesterland is very unique. Not only is it a small town with a very welcoming community where everyone knows everyone. What Chesterland Crown's jewel is, without a doubt in my mind, our superior school system, West Geauga local schools. For most of my academic career, I've roamed the halls of one of these schools or another, and nothing could have been better for me. Each year, each class, each day, I was educated at a caliber that even the federal government has acknowledged as something truly special, and I couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity to attend. However, should education be a privilege, or should everyone be allowed to attend the best educational establishment they can get to? If you ask me, no one should be denied the ability to receive a quality education. Thus brings me to my point on open enrollment. Open enrollment is something that few who utilize fail to appreciate. It allows parents to give their children one of the greatest gifts they can, a great education. People who use open enrollment don't send their children here for the weather. They entrust the future of their child to these schools because they understand how excellent these schools are and have more faith in them than any other and all other alternatives. Open enrollment gives students from other districts the chance to get inspired by these outstanding teachers. It might also give students the opportunity to simply feel safe and secure as they learn. Essentially, open enrollment might not just give students who are here because of a better life. And who could say no to a kid just looking for a better future? Open enrollment does more than just give access to a better education than a few students. It improves the educations of all of us who attend. If open enrollment ceases to exist, so would a few teachers. Not only that, but the diversity of classes offered would also be diminished. Aside from these examples, without open enrollment, hundreds of ideas, hundreds of perspectives, and hundreds of minds contributing to the knowledge shared and absorbed by not only myself, but all other students in the West Geauga local school system would be gone too. And if this more than anything else I say is what's remembered, this is the most important. For a loss of ideas and opinions to challenge the mind and expand on knowledge would be an incalculable loss to the intellectual community as a whole. In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. In the words of John F. Kennedy, the goal of education is the advancement of knowledge and the dissemination of truth. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, an investment in knowledge pays the best interests. In my humble opinion, education is the most valuable currency and the most lucrative commodity a person can have. Open enrollment allows for students to gain a bit of this currency to better their future, which is why, in my opinion, open enrollment is the greatest gift Chesterland has to offer, not only for the students who use it to come here, but for the students who live here as well. Thank you.
My name is Anita Zerker, 8785 Camelot Drive. I just want you to know that the people who are against open enrollment feel sorry for these kids who may end up having to eventually go out of it. Okay, we're not the ones who put these kids in a position. When you went from like maybe 50 kids in open enrollment to 60 kids in open enrollment to 249, where you have $9 million sitting in the bank, it appears that maybe the board and the superintendent got a little greedy, okay? Now, if you maybe went to, contiguous or, maybe possibly up to 100, we may not all be here. But now they got greedy, went to 249 kids. The class sizes are ridiculous. I got the list of class sizes from Mr. Palmer. The class sizes are ridiculous. When I moved out here, when I did everything I could to bring my family out here, class sizes at the most were 24 kids. I've got every directory from 2000 when we moved out here. 24 was the most in a class. You've got 31 kids in a math class at Lindsay. You've got 30 kids in other core classes. That's a problem for me. We came out here because we wanted our kids in Chesterland and Russell to have these nice class sizes and get the attention that they need. I hear kids going after school to get additional help because the class sizes are so huge, they're not getting the attention they need within the classrooms. Then they go after school and then the rooms are filled again. That's where I have a problem. When our kids are facing these huge class sizes, we're not the ones who put you guys in this position. It was the school board, really. If they hadn't gotten greedy and gotten to the number that it is now, I'm sure that this would have never been an issue. Honest to God, I don't think it would have ever been an issue. I feel bad for you. That was your family's choice to take the chance every year. I would never put my kids in that position. I would never take a chance that the next year they might not be able to go back. Right. And you have to consider the homeowners here who are trying to sell their properties. Why should someone come and buy their homes? You don't have to live here. You don't have to come and pay property taxes. So think about all those homeowners who are trying to sell their homes. There's no reason for people to come and buy them. They don't have to anymore. So that's from a taxpayer's point of view. And I really feel bad, but we're not the ones who put you in that position. We are not.
Points of clarification on Mrs. Zerker's concerns. 31 students are in fifth grade math class at science here at Lindsay, and that is because of decisions by the staff and administration to group students in such a way that those 75 students in 3 classes are grouped into 31. It isn't that there are 31 in every section. There's 31, 30, and 14 I believe, to allow us to best serve the needs of those students. And that was a decision made by the staff and administration in that building. The other issue, as mentioned in the October Community Forum, we cannot set a capacity for open enrollment students coming into the district. We set a capacity of students that we can educate at a grade level, and then we fill spots with residents and then open enrollment up to that capacity. So we don't determine that we're going to take 250 or 100 open enrollment students. We set a grade level capacity across all grades, and then based on the students who enroll, resident first, we then fill spots up to that capacity based on open enrollment. And we also put in the caveat this year that the board reserves the right to reduce those numbers, or I should say for this school year, that the board reserves the right to reduce those numbers based on an exceptionally low resident enrollment at a grade level.
I'm Jeannie and I'm from Chesterland as well.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I apologize.
I'm Jeannie, I'm from Chesterland as well. I have a child that goes to middle school.
Jeannie, last name, please.
Jefferson, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I have to agree with her. I feel bad for those kids that can't go. I used to live in Newberry. When we decided that we were going to have a family, we moved to Chesterland. I graduated from Chesterland, but I wanted my son to have the education, and I was just planning a family. I hadn't had one, and he didn't come for 8 years after. But I knew what my future was going to hold. I knew I had to pay my taxes. I knew I had to pay my taxes a lot more than they are in Newberry. I did talk to Mr. Kilroy, and I asked that question, could we have within Geauga County? I have no objection to having children from Newberry and Berkshire because you guys don't have that education that I would like you guys to have. But he did explain that you couldn't, that you could do partial, but it's adjoining. And unfortunately, Berkshire would not be adjoining to the West Geauga school system. Also, I do believe at the last board, or the last school board meeting, it was presented that teachers were going to be one of the last things cut, that they said we could cut a lot more things down to paper towels before we would start cutting our teachers. So I mean, I understand where you guys come from, where you don't want your teachers gone. I don't want our teachers gone. I want my son to go to the high school and have the education that you guys are getting, and the great teachers that you guys have. But when he goes into a classroom, that is too large, and it does affect him. It hurts him. And I do have a child that needs an IEP, and that's because he needs that extra education. I want him to have it, no offense, but I don't want somebody from Newberry or Berkshire to have it over my kid, because I pay to live here. I pay my taxes, I make sure he has education, so I came here. It's just like when you have to pick a pediatrician, a vet, anything, you pick it for the best for your family. I picked West Geauga school system for my family. And I want him educated, and I want him to be able to be educated without being pushed aside.
One second, I'm sure Mr. Kilroy will recognize me. I did want to address some of the things that Michael said about our review of open enrollment, because he speaks on board policy when the board has voted on something. The board has not voted on open enrollment, so Michael's opinions are his own. They may, in fact, for all I know, reflect the majority of the board, but they do not reflect any decisions that the board has made. Michael, in my opinion, Mr. Kilroy, our board president, has said that we're going to review a number of things, which no doubt we will. But you do have to remember that Mr. Kilroy campaigned on for our new board members on reviewing open enrollment. And open enrollment, as you should know, brings in over $1.4 million. Now, if we go to cut, where do we cut? Well, we've been cutting for years on things like custodians and paper towels and virtually everything else that we can cut. But we 3/4 of our money goes into the salary of teachers. Now, if you take Mr. Schenker's point of view and say that open enrollment is costing us money, then by getting rid of open enrollment, we should suddenly free up an enormous amount of money, and we should be in really good shape. Unfortunately, the reality is that that shape that we'd be in would mean that we'd be laying off teachers. We would not have enough children to keep Lindsay School open. We could keep it open. That's a decision that the board would have to make with the community. But when you look at our enrollment, we have far excess capacity of buildings as well as we would have excess capacity of teachers. Other consequences would follow. For instance, with fewer teachers, it would be harder for kids to get into advanced placement classes and honors classes because with fewer classes offered to fewer students, there would be more schedule conflicts. So it's a very real question of what we do without $1.4 million and without 256 students in an environment where we are in fact losing students. Now, the other point that was made is why would people buy here? Well, they buy here for the very reason that you see people buying here, which is they're looking for a school district which will give them a good education. Some of the people who opt for open enrollment, though, simply for various reasons can't or don't want to live in this community. But they do like our schools, and that works to our benefit because it gives us great students and it gives us the income that we derive from that to keep our schools for our students better. The other factor is only 23% of the people in this district have children. The people moving in do not universally have children. You have to remember today, most people who are buying a home do not have children. So the schools are important, but people don't move into Chester or Russell only for the schools. That's one of the factors that brings some of our residents here. The fact is, our schools, the reason we have good schools and are in good shape financially is in part because of the support in this community of people that have no children in the schools whatsoever. We could not, without the support of people who have no children, we could not pass any levies. Because 77% of our households have no children. That means we have a stewardship responsibility to those people who live in the community and are willing to support our schools in spite of the fact that they have no children in them. And part of that stewardship is open enrollment, in my view, because open enrollment helps provide financial stability for our schools, along with a very high grade of students. So I wanted to let you know that that's an individual point of view. Mr. Kilroy was expressing an individual point of view because the board has taken no action on this yet. And the board will, of course, be looking into it, as Mr. Kilroy said.
And I'm going to correct a couple things real quick, because we have independent opinions here. Open enrollment is not an all or nothing. So when one expresses his personal opinion that we'll lose $1.4 million, that's factually not a true number. If you cut the whole thing in this, it's a little bit like yelling fire in a theater. We don't need to do that. Also, I don't see any numbers, and I'm going to Lindsay that says we have to close any school because of the number of children that we have. I have seen nothing along that. This board has done nothing to review the closing of any school. And we don't see at this time any numbers that are going to necessitate the closing of any school. I'm going to address rumors as they come out, even if they come out from the board. Also, with $9 million in the bank, if you address open enrollment or a change in open enrollment or a new alumni association or scholarships or whatever, does not automatically mean you have to cut to teachers. Not when you have $9 million in the bank. But once again, a more thorough study is being done to try to analyze all the different aspects we have at our disposal. And I don't want to have accidental rumors running amok, because we're just getting into the process. Mr. Palmer is working on it and our staff. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Palmer is working on the open enrollment aspect right now with various people on the staff. Yes. We're not having a survey done on it right now. We actually have a survey group that's out there that has been doing some analysis. So things are going on as we speak. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is John Obasri. My daughter is 4. We live in Novelty, and my son is 2. So we got kids who are in Novelty. And I just want to find out. Today we came in and registered our daughter, They said they had no idea if it's gonna be full day or half day, or if we're gonna have to pay for it or not pay for it. I'd like to just say that I hope that I don't have to pay for it.
Everybody else did.
I work at the Department of Defense and I run a business in Edinburgh, so I just wanted to come here and see.
The all-day kindergarten concept is something that we've had some internal discussions on. I'm going to, you're stealing my thunder, but that's okay. Going to be introducing that to the board in brief tonight, but we are looking at the concept of offering all-day kindergarten at no cost to our residents.
That would be great,
In the
especially if
past,
there's $9 million in the cost.
Yeah.
we have charged, I think the tuition rate was about $2,600 last year that we charged for a half day. So it's our hope, we're looking at it and seriously considering it as a way to improve the overall education in the school district.
Just kind of just to make sure, essential the residents that are
Open enrollment would, if there is open enrollment students in kindergarten would be fully funded at that $5,700 level.
So then, as me, as someone living here, I'd have to pay for it? No.
Open enrollment parents that chose full-day kindergarten this year pay the half-day tuition just as a resident student did.
Hi, my name is Mike Speaks, 9435 Marshall Run. I just want to mention a couple of things. The first thing is I think before really can decide an open enrollment, we need to scrub our financial forecast. It's good to have somebody new in here, treasurer, to scrub the numbers. Until those numbers are scrubbed, I don't think we can determine what to do. Because personally, I looked at numbers myself. They don't make sense. I think if you said I need to look at everything, look at every single expense. Looking at what I see, I don't think they look right. I think we got some wiggle room to do either thing. Scrub the financials before you make a decision. The other thing is I think the board, everybody needs to get on the same page and make that decision. Stand together. We can't have splinter groups within the board. I think as everybody sees it, the public sees that, it's really tough. But whatever you decide, we have some issues. For the next time, for the next year. So I think we need to be together, make the decision, and the reasons why. Really, soundly stick together. Whatever you decide. I'm not going to say either way, but we need to back it up with financials.
My name's Sarah Vian, and I'm a Touchland resident also. I'm not sure how I feel about open enrollment, pros or cons. I know there's people both ways, but I do have a couple things I want you to consider, I guess. One of them is I think that the cuts were too deep 4 or 5 years ago. There were a lot of things that were cut that haven't been brought back. We do have some, I don't want to say extra money, but there is some money there. Stuff like student council at elementary school levels was cut and never brought back. Power the Pen, those are just 2 examples. Maybe turn the heat up a little bit in the buildings. So we don't have enough last week.
And that with propane gas.
And I'm not trying to be funny, but I mean, I know my daughter complains that she's cold all the time. We keep our house at 66 and she runs around in shorts and a t-shirt. So her saying she's cold, she's cold. So that would be, some of that stuff to be looked at. If there needs to be some of the cuts that were a little bit too deep, need to come back a little bit to benefit our students. I mean, if we're saying we're bringing in open enrollment money so that we can benefit our programs, then some of these programs that were cut 4 years ago need to come back. The other thing is, can we look at maybe some other income sources? When I was looking up open enrollment online, the state is reviewing open enrollment in 2014, 2015, and at any time the state can decide to cut open enrollment altogether, and where we don't have the decision, the state does. So one of the thoughts I had is, I know they tried before care or after care several years ago. It didn't work, but with double income families now, I know my daughter's bus takes the kids to Ava's child care. There's at least 4 or 5 kids every day that get off there. There's more than, I don't even know how many daycares there are anymore in the community, but maybe bringing a program like that back, maybe starting a pre-K program, some sort of adult education. I know when Mayfield Heights was in trouble a few years ago, they closed one of their school buildings, turned it into an adult education center, wound up having to reopen it because enrollment rose so much again, but that's also something to look at. I know we pay out for Excel Tech programs, but maybe bring a program in, maybe PSEO on campus, possibly looking at renting out space in the buildings for, I know nonprofits are allowed to use it free of charge, but maybe bring a seat, like we rent Mentor's auditorium for graduation. What are some things we can do to bring in money that way? I think we're thinking we're hinging a lot of money on open enrollment, but at any time the state can say, sorry, we're not doing this anymore. And I think we need to look beyond open enrollment as an income source. I'm not for the closing of Lindsay, just putting that out there on the table. I think there's other things that can be done with those buildings. And I would hate to see, I know I've been in this district, this is my 7th year with kids in the district. For 7 years, I've heard K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it doesn't seem like any movement's being done on some of this stuff. And I think this is something that really needs to get looked at. If we really need more money coming into the district, then we can't rely on open enrollment as that income source. We really need to start thinking about some other ways to bring money in. So we're not cutting programs, even if the state says open enrollment's on.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know if you were already left at our last meeting or not that we had, but we are actually in the works of trying to get an Excel program here. I know that was one of the options that you had said, but for those of you that weren't in information, is working on trying to get a program.
But it was just, if you think about stuff.
And we're also working on trying to figure out how to better utilize an alumni program, create an alumni department.
Oh, and I think that's huge. I mean, I went to NECL and I get stuff once a week from them, so I think it's huge to have some sort of alumni.
We'll on our business thing for the next grouping, but we usually take about 30 minutes. Are there any other subjects first before I go back to this one here? Anthony, I know what you're going to be on it. Thank.
I just got a quick question.
Okay.
Can the board charge the open enrollment families more than, like if you're getting $5,700 and it's costing $9,800, can you guys charge them tuition to offset the price?
It's my understanding, John, I'll let you jump in, or it's one or the other.
If you can charge, there is a tuition-based option that would not be tied to open enrollment. It would either be all tuition or open enrollment.
Well, my question is this then. We live in Geauga County. If we want to go to Tri-C or Lakeland, since we're outside that county, we have to pay more. If you go outside the state to college, you're paying more. Yeah, so I don't understand. If you're outside the school district, why you can't charge to make up that difference?
Well, part of it is that we're working on the analysis for what is the true cost as people understand, and sometimes think they understand variable cost analysis and contributing to your fixed costs. We've got a brand new guy.
And one thing, to the kids of open enrollment, listen, I'm against it, but I wish you nothing but the best in life. Whatever happens, you're a great young man. That speech was fantastic. So I wish you nothing but the best in life. Again, it wasn't us who put you in this position. It was other people, and I wish you nothing but the best.
You know what? I think we're going to try to see what the people have out there. If you want to get into it, and when we have our cash surplus, our cash in the bank, and growing from year to year, it is not a function of you get all your taxes at one time, and then you lump them, and you carry them out, and then they don't bleed over time. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes you're actually running a pretty efficient ship, and you're actually increasing your cash balance. Our cash balance has gone up. That's our case right now. Somebody else got up in there. Hold on one second.
As the board knows, my name is Salvatore Dario. I'm here talking about the valedictorian status. As the board knows, I've been here a couple times before, but for you guys, about 10 years ago or so, the valedictorian title got taken away. And I've been explaining the benefits. I've been presenting some research the past couple of months. But Mrs. Vittori asked for some research last month, and I had presented it, but she's not present, so I'll just present it again. It's just real quick. I called about 18 schools in my area and spoken with secretaries and principals concerning their policies on valedictorian. And at the last meeting, someone had said that the schools around us are getting rid of the valedictorian. And from my research, I found that not to be true. The schools that have valedictorian for the 2013-2014 school year are Mayfield, Kirtland, Hawken, Chardon, Aurora, Orange, Gilmore, Hudson, Lake Catholic, Laurel, Perry, and Nordonia. And I don't think these schools are unsuccessful. And in Chagrin recognizes the top few scholars each year based on GPA, so it's kind of the same kind of system as valedictorian. But the schools that around us that I called that do not have valedictorian for the 2013-2014 school year is Kenston, Solon, Beechwood, Mentor, and DCL. So that's 5 out of 18, which means 13 out of 18 do have it for this year. And I think that is self-explanatory. And there were a few arguments against it that were presented at the last month. One was that the reinstatement of the valedictorian title, students become over-competitive and would only choose classes that get the high GPA. From the students I've talked to, most don't even know that we don't even have a valedictorian. Most students think we still have one, and they're surprised to find out that we don't when I talk to them about it. But even I didn't know until the end of my junior year that we didn't have one. I had kind of my sights set on it. I was happy, and I found out that there was no title to be had. My point is that with this by reinstating valedictorian, we're going to have little to no effect on how the students choose classes and how they act in school. And even if it did affect the students, I don't think extra competition, a little bit of extra competition, would have too much of a negative effect. Competition is cultivated in many private schools and colleges, so it could be cultivated here. I do not believe there will be any added competition, but a student who's challenging themselves to be valedictorian will most likely challenge themselves regardless of the title. And the other argument is that students who do PSEO or focus on an arts and music track can't become the GPA-based valedictorian for a few different reasons. But I don't know what the detriment is to having multiple valedictorian-like awards, maybe a PSEO valedictorian, and an arts and music valedictorian, maybe even an academic GPA-based valedictorian. I know it's a lot to consider, but I don't think we should take away academic awards. I think there's something that we should cherish, and we should embrace it instead of removing them. The addition of any award can't harm the students, simply recognizing the students for the hard work that they consistently put in. And the deadline to send extra materials to colleges, most colleges that I apply to at least, is February 15th, which is quickly approaching. And I think it would definitely be a benefit for some students to have an opportunity to send a specific class rank or something else by that deadline. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bishop, I know you were working on some stuff, I thought, right?
Yeah, I believe that we're preparing the presentation for a board meeting.
So is that for the 10th by chance? Because we have a board meeting planned on the 10th, but
We have not set an official date when we talk about it.
any chance we get something for the 10th? The 15th was just thrown out as a possible date. I know that the discussion came up, if it got reinstated, you have to try to reinstate it so that the incoming freshmen, I've been advised, have an opportunity to right out of the chute, have parity going into it. We've also been told that if there is somebody that's exceptional in the interim, that you as the principal of the high school have an opportunity to analyze that aspect all by itself. So,
We do have the opportunity for class speakers at the end of the year, but not really considered valedictorian. Students can submit application or their speeches for selection to be a speaker at graduation. In terms of having it, if we're going to go back and look at an 8th or 9th grade year coming in and stating the valedictorian, I think it's important that all students have the opportunity to understand what that is. And then, if that's something that they're going for, they realize that beginning of their 8th or 9th grade year. At this point, I find it difficult to instate such a policy based on that lack of knowledge or that lack of policy. But it is something that we can do.
Mr. Bishop, Mr. Bishop, you did say, though, that in certain instances you do report class rank. There was something with that I remember you talking about, that in some instances it is reported.
Guidance counselors, in their letters to colleges on behalf of the student, they would indicate the class rank where they are, where they stand. And we do also publicly state top 5%.
Thank you.
Megan Petronsky, Chesterland. As a former guidance counselor, I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Bishop was saying. So with or without valedictorian, we do traditionally, and did when I was there, and I know they continue to do, what is best for each student. So, for example, in the case of a person who would be in the top student of a class, although we don't publish rank as numbers, because actually that hurts students to publish as numbers. We actually group them in top 5, 10, 25, and 50%, so it's a little more nebulous and it helps students within those ranks. If the student is at the top of their class, traditionally the guidance counselor of that student in their letter would make it known that in so many words that the student has achieved the highest grade point average in the class of whatever, without saying that that's their rank. So whatever is best for the student is typically what guidance counselors do. So in not having a valedictorian, which is a title at a graduation ceremony, the message is still being portrayed to colleges for admissions purposes. So just wanted to let you know that.
Go ahead.
I think it might help students, it might help students in some cases, like reporting top 5 or top 10, but in some cases it would help the student to officially report the number 1. Or say if you were the first person off the 5% cut, I think it would help to report that number instead of reporting top 10. It kind of blends you in, I think, in some aspect.
I'll make sure we're not wordsmithing here. If we're actually writing that they have the highest grade point average, can't we just say they're number 1?
Why is it a secret?
Yeah.
Well,
It just seems to me a little silly. I'm simple. Now, I'm not really a politician or whatever. I'm just trying to figure out if the child is number 1. Can't they say I'm number 1?
it was board policy. We were following board policy.
Then we can pick that. Okay. That's how it is. That's something the
Board
board
policy.
can act upon. Do we have any new subjects, please? Because I know we have an awful lot of, I just want to make sure I touch other subjects by chance. Young lady in the back, new subject? No. Any new subjects, please, for this case? Last one, the young lady in the back.
Okay. I'm Jessica Galana, 17 also, and I attend WestGBrd High School. This past year we were Blue Ribbon School, which is a very high honor getting to high school. Most of my regular honor and AP classes have less than 15 people, which I know was a big deal. By getting rid of open enrollment, class sizes would get larger, and students wouldn't have that closer 1-to-1 ratio that will help benefit them in your life. And teachers, everybody loved to be cut. Another kind of important thing, the diversity in races believes, and most of them are in open enrollment. I came from Brush, that area, so I have a good experience with how people treat others of different races. Getting rid of these students can affect the social psychology of the students that go here and live in the Russell and Chesterland Township. And that can affect how people treat each other in the real world.
Thank you very much, everybody. I think we're well over our 30 minutes. I hope that's okay. We're trying to get back to as many people as all that we can. Our next section is new business, which is sometimes new business, a little bit old business, recycling of business. The first one that happens to be on there is a discussion of the Alumni Association and the alumni aspect. Sam was talking about different ways of trying to find revenues. And I have proposed that we aggressively figure out how to do an alumni association. I know it was pointed out in one of the last meetings that there is an alumni group of 1,700 people. It happens to be a Facebook page. My daughter had about 6,000 on her Facebook page, but I'm not quite sure how we take a tool and call that our association. I think we need to hire somebody within the district. I think I found out recently that we've hired within the district and set up and still have some of the flexibility that I was looking for that might be applicable for scholarships and things of that ilk. We need to hire somebody internally to be focused on it. And then use that to try to figure out different ways of having, been advised by our new treasurer to have projects to work on, whether it's funding music, funding math, funding technology, scholarship fund if we decide to go that way, or whatever it is, have some project, we have a focused alumni person who's responsible for being the point person for that effort. So I want to have the alumni effort is on our new business just to make sure it's still on our schedule, it's still being looked at, and hopefully we can figure out how to move that forward as we go forward. Well, I think we need to do is to hire somebody part-time for starters, where their focus is to try to take a look at what we do or don't have, what tools may or may not be available to utilize, what other people are doing, or board members that have experience with other institutions, be they medical or other schools, or whatever, for fundraising efforts, and your experience with a number of different forms of institutions to try to start. We have it to start, and I think it's key.
Guidelines for job duty descriptions of what we're expecting out of this person. I would hire somebody where we don't have guidelines or something to give them when they hire. I'm just trying to say what are the necessary steps to get to that point. I don't think
Brenda, I think you have one line item in your very, very great long.
I appreciate you letting me kind of jump in here. I know that is a piece of my job description, and I take all of those things on my job description very seriously. I didn't realize the fact that we wanted to move up the timeline. I was following the long-range plan, which said winter of 14 is when we needed to have the data alumni base up and running. And so after hearing some of the concerns that were coming up and moving up that timeline, I focused more of my research time on that, and research has now been completed. I believe that a very cost-effective manner was used to produce a current alumni base, which needs to be the first step in anything that we do in establishing alumni. My research involved looking at several different companies and organizations and what they could provide for us. Originally, what I heard was we need our alumni database to be updated. And that's an expense that is more cost effective if you employ an organization that does it on a regular basis to do. For various reasons. They have the phone protocol down, they have the ability to look into death records, and just all of those things. The bottom line is that
Excuse me, do we have a database?
Thank you for asking that. Back in 1993, the high school student body owned the database. They started that. In 1999, the high school again updated the database and they owned that. In 2006, the Alumni Association, which was headed by Dan Stanford at the time, had to get release from the high school for that database to come to them. It is currently in their possession with a company that I believe is the one that I would recommend that we go with. It's Harris Connections, which of course, I would love to say that I have ownership in, but I don't. But Harris Connections is very good at, number one, their integrity is there. They follow political laws, which some school districts and organizations and alumni associations have gotten into a little bit of a pickle with because they released some addresses of students that were under 18 when they released the, well, long story short, a lot of research has been done on this, and the most cost-effective way to start our alumni association, however you see it going in the future, is to establish a database. I was able to negotiate a contract with them that if we would sign with them before this coming Friday, they would not charge us the $2,500 fee that is the minimum that all other companies are charging. I would think that's phase one of what we would like to do. I know another part of our long-range plan is to do PR work and really market our district. I think that this would be a good way for us to also bring that piece in. We've got a lot of pieces in our long-range plan, such as iAlert and different venues that we're not utilizing, that I think that without even spending extra money to hire someone, if we could pull those things together, yes, it would involve some small costs along the way, but nothing to the point of another position yet. If that's where you certainly want to go and need to go, I think that we have enough in-house if we get approval to start this.
Was there a grant that maybe I'm getting way ahead of us, but just, wasn't there an application for a grant to get some sort of program to do something? Where is that?
Yes. The straight A fund from the state, round 2, is where we have this information going into being a grant request. However, the straight A fund from the state of Ohio, round 2, opening date has still not been published. It was supposed to be happening in January, and I think you're keeping up on it on their website. I don't know what the delay is. We're now in February. I email them every week and I ask them, are you opening up the grants yet? No, not yet. We'll let you know. But in the meantime, my thought was, okay, let's say there's no grant money right now. What do we have in-house? What can I accomplish? And I think we've got a pretty good set. So if we would go with the alumni database that's going to be produced, they would produce the book for free for us, which is a great PR tool. We would have 10 pages free of charge that with different things that you would like to have in front, like 10 pages. We want to talk about moving towards the capital campaign fund, which I think is what you're saying, bring more money into the district. And we would lay that out for folks. I would see this as a 3-stage process. The first one is to get the alumni database done, producing a book along the way, which is hands-on for people to do. PR happening along with it that we can handle here in-house. And then the second phase would be something along the lines of a go-a-thon or something that we would want to establish as a regular event that happens for capital outlay. And then we would want to get into phase 3, some of the really nice things like we've all been to other places. I'm a late Catholic alumni, so we do a big dinner every year, and that's where we have a silent auction, and all of that money goes back into the coffer. That's how we support our students. And we at WestG want to establish what do we want to do, what do we want our yearly event to look like. Do we want to do a phone or dinner, or Shaker does the black and white dinner, red and white dinner. So I guess what I'm saying is, especially the Alumni Association is something where you're going and hiring another position. We still have to do what I'm doing. We still have to get a database going, a book going, and a PR. And I think that right now, the research has been done, and I think the recommendation for the most cost-effective free
If we decide by Friday, can you do this for us? Can you get your job description so the whole board can see just exactly what's on your plate? That way everybody has a little bit more information. And then on next Monday, if it's possible, this contract you're talking about, that sort of information for us. Don't just tell the book people or whatever it is that we're having another board meeting to getting back to the grant. See what's
You said we would pay the $2,500 initiation fee. What do we pay?
We won't be paying anything if we can have them signed by the 7th, because I looked also at what they're doing right now, and their business is very slow. This is a dull time for them. And so I made the suggestion that I could get pieces of information that they need to get started right away during the slow period, and they would know that they would be getting a book from us. And
so our skin in the game for the book. What does the book cost?
Nothing.
Okay, how do they make money? I'm sorry.
They believe that the more that we utilize them and the more that we spread the word about what they're doing, it is to their advantage. Harris Publishing used to be the company. The company was bought out 2 years ago and has become Harris Connect. And so the company is now being subsidized by folks who have invested in it, and they want it to expand into other roles. And so this is a really great opportunity for us.
And the only reason I want to thank you for bringing that up, because that went online. that everybody used to know and had experience with. Was not exactly the possible group to work for now. And I saw a few comments online that were questioning who was the new group, why were they calling this thing a book, and really reiterating the fact that this Harris is not old Harris. What this Harris is doing, there have been some complaints on it. And they're right on the front page.
On the charges.
I think it was stylistic too. The very first page of the Google thing, and it came up as far as I think it was because of the walls and shit. But I don't want to commit to $25 one way or the other based on what I saw.
I feel very lost right now. I don't know why I feel lost. I get an agenda that just says new discussion, new business, is this discussion of alumni association. I'm very, very grateful that you did the research that you did. However, I feel that there's something that's really unprepared, because if you knew about a contract, why didn't we get to look at it so we could have even made the decision today? Why didn't we, I mean, if you knew about Harris, I don't know what the hell.
I just knew, sorry, I didn't know.
I'm just saying, I feel like there's something missing.
That's a really good
in my
question.
opinion.
Okay, Jackie, and I'll, from my viewpoint, Alumni Association is this piece of my line, on the job description. It says alumni database. And so I was following the long range plan that the district has, and my timeline was for winter of 14. At our last meeting, and so I have been researching it, but it's not been on the front burner. There's been other things that are going on as well. And at the last meeting, I realized that there's concern about funding and possible scholarships and how can we raise more money and if open enrollment goes away or what have you. And so this became a focus. The contract was negotiated last week on Thursday.
Well, I guess that's where I'm having issues. I'm very, very grateful that you did all that research, but if it was negotiated on Thursday, you have a deadline of this Friday, and we only have a meeting today, why was it not added to our agenda? Why did we not get it?
This contract, as it is, we allow contracts such as photographer contracts, et cetera, to be agreed to by administrators.
So you're not asking for our approval?
Exactly. This contract, as I see it, did not require board approval. I have not even had a chance to look at the contract based on the time. So it is something that, you know, I think overall, what we're experiencing here is a little bit of a growing pain related to the new business area, because there, you know, some of it is a little bit ambiguous as far as what information needs to be brought forward or where is the discussion going. So I think it's a little bit of a growing pain with this whole area as far as how much or where it's going to go and what administrators, et cetera, need to get ready for us. But, you know, I think this is something that Brenda and I have planned to talk about tomorrow. Again, knowing that this contract did not require board approval based
We
on.
don't even need it. Your guys are going to make the decision by Friday.
And I think some of Mike's comments are things that we'll need to look at a little bit further. And, you know, again, if anybody else has any input, feel free to shoot that our way. We will keep you posted as far as what we're thinking. Maybe talking against that today, but if there's anything to think about.
Could we at least get the job description so we can see the totality of what you do? I know you do an awful lot. So at least everybody else get a better idea of what's going on. Thank you, though. The second area we were going to talk about was technology for second grades. One of the things that I would like to focus on is I know we're working on a technology plan. Are you going to, I know we're going to speak in our curriculum technology instruction report coming on down. Do you want me to hold that until we get down over there?
I would love for you to hold that.
For you, I shall do that. So we will go to section, item C. The review of the organizational meeting agenda relating to work sessions. This subject came up when in the past, we had 1 or 2 board meetings each month. We also had committee meetings wherein we would place an ad in the newspaper. Multiple board members could come there because it's an advertised meeting. The public would also come through. And Jeff to take us, maybe before you, I'm not quite sure, but we went to a focus where we had work session meetings, and then sometimes we would have one-on-one, or if there was going to be a discussion on anything, a one-on-one with the superintendent to the head of a committee that really wasn't meeting anybody, and then brought forward in a work session, and we try to get certain things on the work session. And so I'd just like to have our, in the original organization meeting, it said work session. I believe that our meetings need to be totally open session meetings, and that we go back, my suggestion would be to go back to the old way, which is to have a committee meeting, board members who can make it, the public wants to come to it, it's fine. That way we have more transparency, more interaction with the public. And I don't know if we need to make that a resolution. If we do, I'll be happy to make it.
Yeah, I just clarify make a couple of points.
But usually what happens is when we have the work session, what we consider to be a more open session, we have people like this. We got a work session, we're not free. If that is because they feel that nothing's going to be acted on, or it's a different type of meeting. And I think every meeting should be an interactive meeting, like we had for years and years. I know we tried a new method out. I'm just sharing that. I think we need to go back to the old way. If you're to look at
the work session is technically a regular meeting. The work session is not a phrase that realistically exists in our bylaws or policies. A work session is simply a meeting that we had intended no real action to be done, or we want to target specifically that there's provisions for a regular meeting and a special meeting, and that's really about it in the law as far as meetings. The purpose is, part of the concern that came about in the shift to doing this was to allow input of all the board members in the work session, as opposed to those who could make that committee meeting and or not committee meeting. And I think the other part that sort of came to a little bit of a concern was technically the committee meeting should be the discussion of the committee and really shouldn't be other board members and or the public coming in to participate in that committee. It should really be the functioning of that committee with then others being observers, as I understand the process. And that's part of what we're trying to do with the hope. I think, Mike, the overall process was really the same. The concept that everybody discussing policy or whatever it was in that open work session would be fully public for the full board and whatever. But I think you are right that when people see work session, no action, that does lead to it. The other part was that work was then done in the evening, which makes it seemingly available to a lot of people, as opposed to during the day, morning, when those committee meetings generally were held. That's kind of the background.
We have voted at work sessions.
We have had business done at work sessions in the past, yes.
And I think I just want to make sure that it's realized that voting could happen. And one of my concerns has been, we as a board only meet so many times a month. We aren't going to be able to say, all right, we're going to get together tomorrow morning after donuts and continue to do work as Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So we as a board need to utilize and be as efficient as possible. So the more sessions that are understood to be voting sessions, get work done sessions, whatever, however you want to phrase that, what I call the old way, I think is very, very important to have. Also, just as a point of clarification, at least Jeff alluded to, is that in the past, when we had committee meetings, they were open to anybody and everybody. It was just a function. It wasn't just having the committee person there. I sat in on the operations meetings, and people came in, and they had background experience in the trucking industry or whatever they needed, so it was open to people to come in there and interact and be a part, actually get a chance to see it. It wasn't just be there and watch, and you just had the superintendent with the committee person leading. It was very much open discussion and very good for PR. At least that's what it was.
Yeah, I think the challenge, though, that you get into is when you start having 2, 3, or 4 board members at those committee meetings. In effect, you're really having a board meeting if everyone we were in effect having many board meetings in those committees.
You know, there's a great line in Little House on the Prairie where Martin Flatter's husband says with every great loss comes some small gain. And in this case, it looks to me like, you know, we have a major gain instead with status quo, and the reason the status quo gives us a gain, even though we have a substantial loss too, is when we try to do individual committee meetings, we have 6 committees. I don't believe any of us have the time to attend 6 committees. Now, the loss of the work sessions, in my view, is we can't go as in-depth. However, we as individual chairmen of various committees can in fact meet with administration staff to get more information on that. But the advantage is that everyone gets an overview of what's happening without attending 6 meetings. And in terms of low attendance at those particular meetings, I think if the community starts to understand that they too get an entire overview of everything that's happening in a work session, in other words, in every committee. I mean, we've got curriculum, finance, operations, personnel, policy, and technology. And when the public starts understanding that they get this entire universe of what's happening in the schools, I think we may be able to increase attendance. But that's a very legitimate concern. However, I, for 2 years, chaired the finance committee, and I virtually never had anybody show up for the meetings. And you would think finance is kind of important. So I have not had that experience we've had with a number of people from the community coming to the committee meetings and participating, except on rare occasions.
I'm not sure if over the past year or so, though, that the individual committee meetings were even publicized as individual committee meetings for people who come and show up to, make it harder for them to know about meetings to come to. So
that's right. In the first year, then we went to with Jeff, we went to the work sessions. So in the first year, we were working with character and
Jeff's been here for 18 months. So that takes
so we were working with those. The modus operandi, he didn't change that right away. It was some months into when Jeff got here, he changed it. That's exactly right. We didn't change it.
Right, because you guys used to have the finance meeting at 7 a.m. and I could never make it at 7 a.m. But the 4 of you were there and I wasn't. So that's why conversations came up about a work session. Well, 4 of you heard it, and we have to just reiterate it for 1 board member. You know, and that may be the case all over. And I'm not saying that I disagree with either one of you, but the point was is we should all have a little faith in each other to do the due diligence as your committee chair to come back and report through.
And I'm not so sure it should just be, all right, meet and do it all by yourself. I think if we're looking for opportunities for transparency, sometimes the more meetings the better. And that's basically where I'm coming from. There's more opportunities and more chances to do it. So that was just a different thing.
It's interesting because I see it exactly that the work session gives us an opportunity for more transparency. Because what citizen is going to attend 5 or 6 meetings to find out what's going on? Any citizen who attends a work session, and certainly to publicize it in the community, to understand what they are, any citizen who attends one now doesn't have to attend 4 or 5 other meetings.
So we can always take any session and add more time to the particular subject and to make sure it gets its own. That's how that will work. Okay. If that's enough on that one. We're talking about a grant status update. It's going to be the next subject that was on here.
What would you like to know about that?
Well, you started to get into the one that had to do with the straight A fund. I know we had put out some grant applications. There was the one application with Great Falls. What is the final status of that?
But as I said at last meeting, the Grand Falls one did not get funded by the state.
And then we had the other one which had to do.
For round 2, we have 2 grants that are ready to be submitted when they open the window. The one is the Hub grant, which is basically a technology grant. There's 3 phases to it. The first phase is a hub in each of the school buildings that would have the cutting edge technology for students to participate in years on a regular basis. Some of those pieces of information and research came from things that are being done at the most advanced speaking schools and colleges in the United States. The second part of that grant is for professional development, so everyone understands how to use that technology. And the third part of that grant is for startup seed money for major pieces of technology. Basically, all of our students from 6th to 8th grade will have Chromebooks, is what part of the grant. All of our teaching staff will have iPads, and all of our students from kindergarten through 5th grade would be provided an iPad. That's the basis of that grant.
Would it make sense to have, well, as opposed to the whole grant, a summary of the couple of grants and have Brenda present that at the next board?
Or you could just actually write up a bulletized spreadsheet of each one of them, have it for us so that we can have it sooner or better, so that way we can at least have it in participation next Monday. Thank you. Next, anything else on that subject? Just trying to get an update on the grants. Where do grant ideas come from? How do we generate grant ideas?
That's a really great question. The HUB'd idea for the major grant came about after looking through the long-range plan and looking what our needs were, and there seemed to be a major emphasis on getting technology, which we are lacking here in our school district. So that's what created the big grant for the state. The second grant, which was for the alumni, is something that the board's been talking about on a regular basis. There's grants that I've held 2 grant writing sessions for our teaching staff, and I've also talked to the administrative team at our meetings, because ideas have to be generated for what the needs are. Like, what do you need for a grant? So on Thursday night, we have another grant writing session coming up, and what we've sent out for teaching staff is bring your ideas and turn them into a proposal to get them funded. I know as we look into next year in curriculum, we're working on what is overall one of the initiatives that we need to have in our district, and that would of course be something that we would want to search for grants for as well.
I'd like to be back to that, only because I have, even just for 5 minutes, I've got history with a couple private schools. Actually created a grant list from the back page of their alumni books. They sent it to me, so why not figure out companies and stuff like that. Do you have that? I know I sent that to the district.
I have.
Have you been given the list I sent to the district?
Yeah.
That highlights those foundations and people that have given grants or given monies to university school and to have their ground prepared.
Where will I find that?
I'll get it for you.
Okay.
It's within the system.
Okay.
That way we can just start a database. I'm just trying to figure out how do we know where to go to and stuff like that. Because it's floating around here somewhere, right? Maybe be at the treasurer's office, Jeff, you may know where it is. Let's see if we can find it. So enough on that. How about, we were going to have some discussion. Jackie, you wanted to have medical personnel discussion put on to start.
Well, yeah, a couple months ago, I went to the Alliance with Phil, prior when he was on another job, and Jeff had told me that him and Deb were working on figuring out some kinks, and that would, let us know how things are moving with that. And it's been about 3 months, so I was wondering.
There is nothing prepared for this meeting, no. And I guess that's, again, not knowing the details of this. And I've had this discussion, I guess, a little bit last time as we were planning things. It seems like a lot of these new business items, if there were requests from the board for specific reports, we would probably be a lot more effective in communicating and meeting the needs of the information. I know Deborah has been working through a great deal of stuff in different ways to address things, but as far as addressing specific needs, much of that is kind of shifted into parts of negotiation, etc. So it really hasn't taken form to generate a report because of the timing of things.
So, I guess could I ask, a couple of years ago when we had all of these huge cuts that you hear from the audience, one of them was to reduce in our medical staff. And I guess what I am interested in seeing, if I have support from the board, is are we doing research to ongo to make sure that that was the best cut being done? Like Mrs. Mann had said, we made those cuts then and now we're more financially stable. Is that still the best decision for every student in this district? Is there some type of presentation or update that you could give us that that is still the same situation? Because I think each year, especially with medical, it's like open enrollment, like our needs change almost minute by minute, let alone year by year. And I am wondering, since it's been 2.5 years since we've made those cuts, is that still the recommendation of this district, and are there facts to follow that?
As far as, I'm going to kind of not answer your question first. I'm sure you're used to that.
Once you get to the answer, we'll be ready.
The one thing that's important to note with that is, in the 1.5 years that I've been here, there have been, right now we have a nurse, and then we contract the service for an assistant. I'll just use that phrase, not knowing the exact terminology, but we contract through the ESC with someone else. That time has been increased from what was originally started with to try to meet the needs, and we have varied that and purchased some additional time based on needs within the district. So we do change that and have looked at this over, like Mike said, 18 months or however many months it is, but the 1.5 years, I guess, is 18 months. We have looked at that, we continue to look at that. What we've kind of been focusing on overall is kind of gearing towards next year and what is the best way to meet the needs of that area overall.
Only because, on top of chronic conditions that we have, medical conditions, communicable diseases we have in our district, the state is also, we've seen through policy that we're getting, one of the things that they may be presenting to us from the state is that they may be considering allergies disabilities. So with all of these things that are happening, 504s and IEPs, I would just like to know or have some type of presentation that we are doing everything we can to make sure that we are keeping our kids in school as much as possible. With those things. So, that motion, thank you, Ben. I would, help me out with the verbiage. I would like to make a motion to have a presentation on the update of our clinical staffing within the district. And,
Would you like it by a particular date? We have February 24th.
if I make sure that I did everything in there that I want, so let me hold off on my words and then I'll get there.
Get the update. That'll cover everything.
What?
You say, can I just have an update?
But there's a lot of different things I'd like to update on, so I don't want part to be left out, is what I'm saying. Just saying update, is that going to cover everything?
That, in my book, would cover, in a broad brush, update our medical staffing requirements.
Requirements, what is expected out of us on a daily basis. We did some switching with clerical aides. I'd like to understand better if that was the best move for us and how we're utilizing them, et cetera, et cetera. You got all that?
Potential new challenges and regulations.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Potential new challenges and regulations. On the, what are the meeting?
We've got February 20th, we have the 10th and the 24th, and you have March 10 and 31, I think.
And then the 24th, is that February?
February.
February? Yes, so February 24th.
Could I just, out of deference to Deborah, who is going to be, is right now dealing with a variety of things that would be appropriate to seek her input in this, I don't suggest yes.
Jackie, I would love to do the most thorough job
given the workload that I'm doing with right now, I probably would not be as thorough as I would like to be by February.
So March 10th would be the next date, and the 31st, I think, vacation. March 10th is the next possible one. 31st is a vacation, so, yeah. 10th would work for you? That's the motion.
So go ahead, read that motion back to us.
Presentation from the administration and clinical staff